Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Walking Down the Warwick Road. I think this is episode 8 by my count, 7 or 8, somewhere in there. They all seem to mesh together, like I've said before at times. But Pete, it's been a little bit. It's been a while since we've been here to talk about United. And how have you been? Lots happened. A lot going on in the world. You guys are out of lockdown or coming out of lockdown over there.
Yeah, in the UK, it really feels like certainly domestically, going around town and going out for meals and for a coffee or for a beer, it's all systems go. Still a little bit of mask wearing, officially and unofficially, but no, it's good and the weather's good. So people are just concerned because they want to travel abroad, either for holiday or to visit relatives, and that's tricky at the moment. So we're hoping that'll change. But no, it's better than it was 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago.
Good afternoon to you as well, Keen, from the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. Yeah, certainly things are improving. And of course, talking about things improving towards the end of the season. And, we saw fans starting to return to football. You've actually been to see United in person. I know you were quite excited and quite happy about that. How did the season end for you in terms of being able to reconnect with United?
Certainly, in terms of reconnecting, it was superb just to go to a match. Of course, I'd never lost my love for United, and I knew it would that we would go back sometime. It was just a matter of time, and if I had my chance, I'd be the first one back in. But what it did, it was a difficult time. With United games, just that you couldn't go to them. I knew we could watch them on the telly, but I'm a match goer, and the whole experience around the matches, travelling to various places, etc., with friends, that had all gone. So I thought it had all gone for the season, to be honest, but thank God they let us in for Fulham. Well, they let 10,000 in. I was lucky enough to get in, and not a great game, not a great result, but just happy to be in there. And then what really came out the blue was we're in a final in Gdansk, a European final, which I would normally have been at almost automatically, God willing. But I just thought they wouldn't let us abroad, but they did. I also had quite a low number of credits in the United ballot, so I thought I might not get a ticket. But I guess a lot of people didn't decided not to travel with all the tests you had to have, etc. Right. And I got a ticket and I went, and that was just so unexpected, but such a delight. I've managed to get to all the European finals United have ever been in, whether we've won or lost them. So that in itself was fantastic. Gdansk was a great city. The atmosphere was good, but again, the result wasn't the one we wanted, and the performance wasn't. It was too stop-start again, and that's the thing Ollie's got to sort out. Get off to a faster start and then maintain the pace. You can't play at 100 miles an hour for 90 minutes, but we should be able to keep a tempo up that pushes the other team back for longer. And so a horrible way to lose on penalties. But I suppose the good thing was, I was reconnected back to the game I love, and hopefully we can get back there in August and move on to the future.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like hopefully things are trending in the right direction on that front with getting back to the stadium full stop and without any type of restriction. But it was great to see that I know you and I were talking during the final in Gdansk, and I was following your adventures from afar. But so it was great to see you. I was happy for you, and it was great to see you to get back to being there live, and really, I think that's what football is all about, isn't it? I mean, it's the fans. It's just not the same without the fans. So long may it carry into next season, and hopefully things get back to normal. You touched on sort of a bit of present day. I guess as people can tell today, we're without a guest. It's just Pete and I, but I guess that gives us a little bit of a chance before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's show, just to be able to maybe quickly look towards the new season. And United sort of, I guess, ended the season fairly well in terms of the second place finish and getting to a European Cup final. But excited for the new season and ready to kick on.
Yeah, definitely. I think there'll be one or two signings. I don't follow the minute by minute.
Right.
You mustn't be able to get near Manchester Airport for the people who report various players have landed within the previous hour. Some of the best signings United ever made came right out the blue. Cantona, Cole, Sheringham, many others. I quite like it that way. To me, it's news when it happens, not speculation. Speculation is just like froth on the coffee. And I don't like froth on my coffee, Tim. But I'm excited. I think he needs a strong midfielder in, another strong midfielder in, and then take your pick where it's another striker or another defender. But I do think it's going to be a good season for us. But it's a big test for Ollie. If he'd have won the Europa League, it would have given him the foothold that Fergie got in 1990 to build on, gave him time, gave people belief in him. It's a bit harder for him now, but I'm excited for it. Yeah, what about you?
Yeah, same thing. Very excited for it. I thought that I was happy with the way the season ended in terms of the finish. It was disappointing losing the European Cup final. I agree. The pressure probably would have eased on Ollie a little bit if he had been able to win a trophy. But yeah, just ready for football, enjoying Euros. Again, it's good to see fans back at the Euros, but the Euros aren't united, let's be honest. So looking forward to the new season, and that's sort of why it's so great to be here and meet up with you and talk about past glories and the history and culture of this great club, because it sort of gives us a United fix through the summer, doesn't it? And I suppose that Pete sort of leads us right into why we're here today, really, is to look back at a historical season in the 2002 and 2003 season. I mean, we looked back a little bit ago at the 1958-1959 season, and that season on its own merits was a historical season, obviously for a different reason. This season here that we're going to look at today, when you look at it in the context of sort of what was unfolding around the club at the time, the transition that was taking place within the squad, and certainly what was going on with Fergie, just set the scene for us a bit in terms of what was happening and sort of how things were unfolding coming into this season.
Well, 2002, in the summer of 2002, we'd had the World Cup in Japan, where England got revenge over Argentina. Roy Keane stormed off, left the camp. That's what kept us happy in the summer of 2002. But it was pivotal, I think, because United in the previous season had lost out to Arsenal in the league and the cup. They won the double. Fergie was due to retire in 2002. He'd signed a 3-year contract after we won the treble in 99, and was going to retire. A real leader, a leader of a big organisation or a country, a prime minister, whatever, and I think Blair made the same mistake, Tony Blair, you shouldn't announce that you're going too soon. You should actually just do it on the day and go, because you become a lame duck. And there was a danger around about 2001, the previous season, to what we're going to cover today. I wouldn't say Fergie would ever become a lame duck, but the press kept wanting to ask who was going to be his replacement, and they kept asking the club that. And Sven-Göran Eriksson was lined up, and all sorts of people. I used to have nightmares about once Fergie had turned everything down. Oh my God, what do we do when Fergie retires? Now, I'd be having these dreams that he was going, and what do we do? What do we do? So it wasn't good for any of us. Anyway, luckily, or not luckily, for around about the January of 2002, Fergie decided, he had a chat with his wife and his family, decided this wasn't the time to retire, and stayed on. And of course, thank God he did. So he had, but we'd lost out in 2002, that season. We signed Jaap Stam. Sorry, we hadn't signed Jaap Stam. We signed Ruud van Nistelrooy and Veron in the start of the 01-02. That took United into the real big league of transfers, something like 47 million combined for those two, which doesn't sound a lot now, but it was mega money. And it didn't really come off. It also let Jaap Stam go, a decision that he later admitted he regretted. And we never really caught up with Arsenal in that season. We got to the semi-finals of the European Cup, the Champions League, lost to Bayer Leverkusen, a team we should have beaten. I think we lost on away goals. The final would have been in Glasgow. That might have been Fergie's great send-off had that happened, but it wasn't to be because Bayer Leverkusen beat us. So, all right, it's only one season without a trophy. Before that, we'd done really well. 10 years before, we craved just one title, Tim. You know, if we had one league title again after 26 years, we'd all be happy. A decade on, we'd had 7 league titles in 10 seasons. We'd had 2 doubles. We'd won the unique English treble. Yeah. And so we were in the promised land. But I don't know if you're into Bruce Springsteen, Tim.
I am.
I am. There's a song called Badlands. Okay. And in it just does a little scene where a little verse where it says, "Poor man wanna be rich, rich man wanna be king, and a king ain't satisfied till he rules everything." And that's where I saw United at in 2002. We'd got those riches that we thought we might not see, but we wanted really to rule the world, rule Europe, really. And so we wanted to get our trophy back in 2002-03, and we wanted to try and rule Europe because it would have been 4 years then since we won the Champions League in Barcelona. So that's kind of where we were, and the season that kind of sets the season up really. Yeah. Players came in. The big signing was Rio Ferdinand.
You had mentioned, I'll just get really quick to comment here from Keane. Still breaks my heart that Keno left the World Cup. We done so well without him. We could have, Ireland, done a bit more with Keane in the squad. I mean, yeah, you have a player like Roy Keane in your squad, you're gonna accomplish good things. There's no doubt about it. Thanks for the comment there, Keno. Rachel says, "Afternoon, gents." Afternoon to you, Rach. And Gaynor is agreeing with you there, Pete. I can't wait for the new season. Even if we don't win anything, just to get back into the stadium is enough for me. I think a lot of people, it is nice to win things, but I do think a lot of people feel that way. I'll pull up that graphic again, Pete, about the players coming in, the ins and outs. And you touched on it, but United at that time, very much a team in transition. When you look at the great team that he assembled with the class of 92, of course, Jaap Stam, Ronnie Janssen, Jesper Blomqvist, Teddy, Yorkie and Cole. Of course, one of the stalwarts of that side in Dennis Irwin. And in that 2001 to 2003 period, you can see the outs there. I mean, those are players that sort of, you talked about the historic treble that United won, were integral players in that side. And I remember when those players started to go, it's so hard to turn a team over, and there was a bit of apprehension. Are we going to be able to carry on like we did? And then the season before with the 2001-2002 season with Arsenal, of course, winning the double, and you start to worry a bit because it didn't come off initially like you talked about for Laurent Blanc coming in to replace Jaap Stam in that first season. There was a bit of, it didn't work out very well. Of course, Van Nistelrooy came in and sort of hit the ground running, but there was the Dwight York thing that was sort of looming over everyone's head with the failed transfer. I believe it was in the 02-03 season, if I remember correctly, the failed transfer it was the season before, the failed transfer in January to go to Middlesbrough. Yeah. And it didn't come off, and then he ended up leaving at the end of the season. So there was a few question marks that way, but it's very difficult. Ferguson had a massive task when you have those types of players leaving. We've seen it before with the 94-95 season and then the 95-96 season. When the famous you don't win anything with kids, when he made the transition that year as well. So you had the confidence that he was going to be able to do it, but you're still losing some key players there, and then to have to topple an Arsenal side was always going to be a job.
Yeah. I think you're right, Tim. And people say great managers, whether it's Busby or Ferguson or Paisley or whatever, Herbie Chapman in the past, that they built, say, 3 great sides. If you last 20 years, 3 great sides. What actually happens is it changes quite subtly, but it seems like it was 3 sides built. But But the key is you've got to keep that momentum going. And as you say, Fergie did it from that 93, 94, 95 side up to 97, 98, 99. I think he lost a little bit of momentum around 2001. One, because, well, I think he was a little distracted by the retirement thing that was touched on.
Yeah.
If you remember, he'd also got quite a lot into horse racing.
Yeah.
People around him, including his wife, said, look, you know, you do get too embroiled in the United stuff. And he was at times an angry man, Fergie, especially if we didn't win a game. And the recommendation was have another interest. That'll distract you a little bit and give you more balance in your life. So he took up horse racing. Of course, probably like any very focused person, he couldn't just dally in it. He wanted his horse to win, which Rocky Gibraltar did. But then he did get quite deep in with the Coolmore set, the horse owners in Ireland. And they started to buy up shares, and that led to the Glazers making an interest as well. And it was around about 2002 to 2004, 2002 to 2004. I think a bit of a time where Fergie did take his eye off the ball. He'd probably admit that, but if we ever get him on the show, Tim, we can ask him.
Yeah.
But, he could still perform miracles within the squad he's got. But you're right, the 99 team was going, the treble-winning team, and therefore a little bit of momentum went, because the teams that have ruled Europe, Ajax, Bayern Munich, AC Milan, Real Madrid, Liverpool, sadly, created a momentum and then won it 2, 3, 4 years on the trot, or 3 out of 5, etc. And you keep that pot boiling at the very highest level. It was kind of slipping for us, but in 2002 we thought, well, let's give it another go. You know, we still had some great players.
Yeah, for sure. And let's look at some of those players now, Pete, as we look at the sort of key contributors, into, at least in terms of appearances. Obviously, we'll touch about some of the, or we'll touch on some of the tremendous individual displays from these players in individual games, as well as season long. But as you can see there, we played. You and I were talking sort of in the lead up to the show, because the Champions League, of course, had the 2 stages. So we had 14 league games in the Champions League, 14 group games between the first group and the second group in the Champions League, which is just a massive amount of games. And that sort of raised our total in terms of overall games to 63 games that season. It was just in terms of the amount of games, it was just a massive, massive season. So you'll see, like, a lot of these players over 50 appearances that season. Of course, and we'll touch on him a bit later, but Ruud van Nistelrooy, just a season for the ages. You talk about some of the great individual seasons we've seen at United over our history. I mean, he was just immense that season. Of course, Rio came in, like you had mentioned. John O'Shea had started to. I remember Fergie talking about how before that season, John O'Shea had worked really hard in the close season coming into the 02-03 season to really strengthen himself and really sort of impose himself on the squad. And he was rewarded with the first start of the season. I think he started against Chelsea as well, and he won man of the match in that Chelsea game for the second game of the season, or the third game of the season that they played. Sorry. So some really, really big individual performances. Who else? I mean, obviously the players I mentioned, but is there anybody else that stands out for you, Pete, that season that you point to and say they were massively involved and massive contributions?
Just a couple of the unsung heroes. You're right to mention John O'Shea. He became a hero just because he wasn't the greatest of players, but he was a very versatile guy. Very commanding. Gave his all for the shirt. Wes Brown was coming through to establish himself. In fact, in the second half of the season we're covering, him and Ferdinand forged a centre-back partnership. A bit of another unsung hero, doesn't get mentioned much in our history, but Mikel Silvestre, who Fergie bought in '99 after the treble win. And he really was a mainstay in the defence in the early noughties. Ferdinand, we knew was a good player, but would he settle in at Old Trafford? Big question mark. 30 million Fergie paid for him in the summer of 2002, Tim. That made Ferdinand the world's the costliest defender in the world. He was the biggest teeth for a defender. So a lot on his shoulders there. And then the old stalwarts, you know, Giggsy and Bex were there. Gary, the two Nevilles, you know. Ollie Gunner, we should not forget, still contributing, still starting to get a few more runs out, starts rather than substitute appearances, you know.
Absolutely.
And of course, Scholesy, you know, all these went on to play 40 or 50 games in that run of 63 matches, Tim, which I think the most we've ever played in a season is 66 when we won the World Club Championship in 2009. But there's only been a couple of 63s and 64s. It really was a long season with having to qualify for the Champions League as well, because we'd finished third in 2002, not just runners up to Arsenal, but third, you know. But,
absolutely.
But, a strong squad. It brought Carlos Queiroz in as well that season. McLaren had gone to, at the start of that season, McLaren had gone to Middlesbrough. So, you know, Fergie's said, okay, I'm not retiring, got Queiroz in, got Ferdinand, let's go, he says.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for those watching, Pete and I, we sort of broke this season down because there's such a huge volume of games. We've broken it into 3 phases for everybody. So we'll look at the first phase here, and the phases don't necessarily go in terms of equality for games. It's really sort of spots in the season where we thought things turned a bit, didn't we, Pete? Or moments that turned it. So we look at the first phase from October 14th to November 9th, 2002. We didn't get off to a great start that season, did we, Pete? 7 players, if I remember correctly, 7 players injured. Some players coming back from surgeries. So, you know, injuries certainly taking its toll on us early. 13 played in the Premier League. Only the 6 wins, 4 draws, and we lost 3 matches in the first 13 games. And we lost to West Brom, if I remember. Or did we win? No, we beat West Brom. I'm trying to remember who the losses came to that early on, but it wasn't a great start, was it?
Rivals, Tim.
Yes,
we lost to Leeds, Bolton, and then Man City.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Rio's return to Leeds didn't go so well, did it? That's right. No. You're correct. So, but it just made some notes in the bottom during that period as well. Rio's return to Ellen Road, as I said, ends in defeat. United start with 3 wins in their first 8 games. Not a great return in terms of your first 8 games of the new season. They started to pick it up a bit towards the end of that span, where they went on a 9-game undefeated run. Started at home with the 5-2 win against Maccabi Haifa. What else stands out for you in that first sort of run, Pete, that we've either just touched on or that you wanted to add?
Well, in the 2 cup competitions that start in the first part of the season, we did okay. We threw in the Worthington Cup, and in the Champions League, of course, which is very important. We wanted to be champions of England, but champions of Europe doesn't. Well, for me, it always trumps that, because that's United's aim. It should be the aim for any club team to win the trophy that covers their continent. We qualified against a Hungarian team that I won't try and pronounce, but we beat them 5 on an aggregate. Beat them 5 on an aggregate, even though we lost the first leg in Hungary. But we started well in Group 1 stage. But in the league, we were stuttering and stammering a little bit. Roy Keane got injured in the third league match. I think it was a bit of a long-standing injury. He had a hip injury and he had to have an operation. So that was 3 games in. That would keep him out until the 28th of December, which we'll come to. So he missed all the games up to Christmas after game 3. Now, Roy Keane was still pivotal then. This was 2002, and Roy Keane was still the main driving force. He was the captain of the team, captain of the club, and was a superb player all round. So that injured us a bit. Ferdinand settling in. Wes Brown was injured, so he had different partners. Ferdinand at the back, and I think Gary Neville got injured as well. So a couple of injuries, but the last of those injuries. Forget the injuries. The last of those defeats Tim, on the 9th of November. Was at City. It was the final game at Main Road, the final derby at Main Road, and they beat us. Sean Golter turned it on. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
And they kept feeding the goal, and he scored 3. We scored 1. Well, he didn't score 3. City scored 3. But to lose, it was the first time City had beaten us since September '89 in that 5-1 defeat. So they've gone 13 years without losing a derby, United, which is incredible. So it was a bit of a shock. Fergie called on his players after that game publicly. He didn't, not individually, but collectively. He publicly said they've all got to take a strong look at themselves, a deep and long look at themselves. Yeah. And for the next phase, which we can come to, they did turn the corner a wee bit. Things did improve. So good in the cups, Tim, but jittery in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've got a league table for.
I do.
So there you go. That's what the other clubs were doing around us, Tim.
Yeah. So sitting in 5th place, like you touched on, it was the league form. That was the second year. The second year for the 2-legged Champions League groups. I think you and I had talked about that. Do you think adding that first group so early in the season with all the injuries United had? I mean, we're going to focus on the league here, but we're going to look at the other games around it. You just wonder if that first group with the injury toll that we were going through at the time, if that had an effect on the league form and having to navigate those Champions League games so early in the season.
Oh, definitely. Yes, it would have had an effect. I suppose you could say all the other teams in the Champions League, especially those that had to qualify in the preliminary rounds, had a lot of games to play. But when you're doing that and playing in the Premier League, which is probably the best, the toughest league, most grueling league in the world with the best players, that's an awful lot of games to play. From a fan's point of view, we hated it. Hated it in the sense that it stifles the game. You know, sometimes more doesn't make things better. If you go and see a stand-up comedian, and he or she's on for half an hour, if they stayed on for an hour, it wouldn't make them twice as good. It could actually just stretch it out and dilute it. And I think that's they abandoned it after 2 seasons, UEFA, this 2-group stage, because knockout is exciting. We know that now with the Euros, don't we? The group's okay, and the final game's okay. That becomes a knockout if you're still in it. But it was strangling the game, really. It was killing it. But what can't be cured has to be endured. So Fergie had to find a way.
Well, like we touched on, like 14 group games between those two games or 2 groups in the Champions League. It's just an excessive amount of games in the context of this season. Right. So so the league table up until November 9th, as we touched on, United sitting in 5th place.
And the worry about that, Tim, just very quickly, we're 5th place, but we're 8 points behind Liverpool. Arsenal and Chelsea were more than capable of going on a 10, 20, 30 game run. Arsenal had done it the previous season, So you don't want to let those guys out of your sight. And early 13 games in, they weren't out of sight, but we didn't want to let them go any further.
Yeah, and Liverpool had strengthened that summer too, if I remember correctly. I think Gerard Houllier had strengthened the squad as well. So, I think at this stage, we thought that, Arsenal was going to, at the end of the season or during the run-in when it all shook down, it would be Arsenal that would be the one that would sort of be thereabouts, that we'd be either needing to hold back or to rein in. But it was a Liverpool side that had made some signings and that were improving around this time too. So, right. So if we go to from November 13th, phase 2. Of the 02-03 season, November 13th to December 26th, Boxing Day, festive period. And again, you look at the league form, not great in terms of the 7 victories. The 7 games played, the 4 victories, a draw, and 2 more losses. still like good run in the Champions League, and then obviously into the Worthington Cup. 10-game undefeated run, including 8 games in a row, or 8 wins in a row during that stretch. We seemed to, in the first 2 phases, that's one thing I noticed looking back at the season, was we sort of went on these little runs here and there where we'd go undefeated for 8, and then sort of just drop some silly points. And that really seemed to be our downfall, was just those games. Like, we couldn't sustain that level of success that we've seen from United, and that we will see later in this season, of course. But that really hampered us at the start. 2-0 defeat of Arsenal at Old Trafford, of course, during this stretch. Solskjaer and Van Nistelrooy combined for 12 of the 21 goals we scored by United. And we'll talk about the season that Ruud Van Nistelrooy had. You touched on it with Solskjaer getting some more opportunities as a starter with the departure of Dwight York and Andy Cole by this point, and really not, Diego Forlan had come in, but he wasn't really ready to step in and assume that role. So Solskjaer and Van Nistelrooy, linking up brilliantly over this period. And it was funny because Solskjaer at this time, I think it was later in the season, after Beckham was injured and came back from his injury, that Solskjaer was actually deployed out on the right-hand side for Beckham. So interesting in terms of that. But also within this period, Pete, we have the 2-1 defeat of Liverpool at Anfield, and we have a little clip here that we can play for people.
Carragher. Oh, the goalkeeper's lost it. What a catastrophe for Dudek. What a gift for Forlan and for Manchester United.
Players of the day, Diego Forlan.
Oh, it's through. It's Forlan again. It is Forlan again.
He made 30 appearances as a substitute this season. I think I put up that he had 40. He did have 45 appearances that season, 30 of them as a substitute, which is remarkable. But to endure yourself into the hearts of United supporters, to do that at Anfield, special moment for him, a special moment that season, one that stands out for me. I remember that game vividly, sort of dancing around my living room watching it. But were you in the away in that game?
I was, yes. I was still, I was, and it was superb. The thing about that last phase, you don't need to put the screen up again, Tim, but we actually, those 2 defeats in the league, in the 7 league runs, came right at the end of that period. 22nd of December, I think, against Blackburn, 26th of December against Middlesbrough. Up to that point, we'd won 5 and drawn 1. It wasn't too bad, but we slipped again near Christmas. But at the start of December, there was a pivotal couple of games, and we started with that Liverpool game, Liverpool away and Arsenal at home. So they were our 2 rivals. We've seen that from the league table of earlier. Yep. United were having terrible injuries, though, especially in midfield. For the Liverpool game, Veron was out, Ferdinand was out, Beckham was out, Keane was still out. These are players that you will want at Anfield for starters. So really, some of those lads you mentioned earlier, like O'Shea, Brown, etc., we touched on, really did a sterling job, because they held the fort in those 2 games. And a guy that we haven't mentioned yet until you showed the clip, Diego Forlan, bought in the January of 2002, and played in that second half of the season where we didn't win anything. Didn't score in 18 matches, Tim. Started scoring in the autumn of that year, so season 02-03, if you follow that. But he arrived on planet Manchester United with that performance at Anfield that day, with that goal, because it was 0-0 at half-time. United were really digging in, going toe-to-toe with Liverpool, but a real battle to not lose. And then I think he scored within 3 minutes, 64th.
Yeah, 64th and 67th minute.
Right, and that was the first one. It was a mistake by Dudek, but that's fine. He was there to do what he should do, pounce and and score goals. And you're right, he became an instant hero with both those goals. He came from Uruguay. He made the Scousers cry. Diego. Some people play for 10 years at Old Trafford and don't get a song about them. He had one within 11 months that we used to sing whether we were playing the Scousers or not. So he really did it right.
Let's get a couple of comments here.
Goals after that, yeah.
We'll get to some of the comments here from Reese. Give me some Forlan, Keane's in. Long live Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Some love for the manager.
Yeah.
Forlan was a cult hero. Yeah, he did. That really cemented his status, I think, as a sort of that cult hero at United. And he really filled, I think, what he would go on to when he moved to Spain. But, that is a terrific memory for everyone. Good memory, says Therese. Gainer, what a beautiful sight. And Reese says, 2002-03 remains my favorite season as a United fan. So It's funny because when I did talk about this season with people, sort of saying that we were going to do this show a lot, I heard that a lot, as that's one of my favorite seasons, the 02-03 season. So we will get into, I see a couple of comments here too, just mentioning the Real Madrid tie at Old Trafford. We will obviously be touching on that, Pete. But within that second phase too, so that game against Liverpool came on December 1st.
Yeah, of course, that's right.
Of course,
first time we'd won at Anfield in 5 years, Tim.
I mean, really, I did not know that.
So that would have gone back to '97. With all the wins we were having then and the treble, we hadn't won at Anfield. So backs against the wall, it was a good performance. Yeah. And next up came Arsenal to Old Trafford, the champions. If they'd have beaten us, they could have gone 8 points ahead.
You look at that stretch in that season. So December 1st to Liverpool, and then midweek we were at Burnley in the Worthington Cup. And then Arsenal came at the weekend on the 7th. So within 6 days, Liverpool, Burnley in the Cup, and Arsenal. To be able to win all 3 of those games, that's really, you look at that 3-game stretch, to be able to defeat Arsenal and Liverpool in the same week, just absolutely amazing. And
with all those injuries, Tim.
With all the injuries, and you look at sort of that Arsenal game, Pete, and I know Sir Alex has commented on it in the interviews I've seen with him, but we'll play the goals from the Arsenal game because I think it is a pivotal moment in the season. One of the most impressive displays of the season in that game was Phil Neville in midfield, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. He came of age that day. He'd been a good player since '96, for 6 years. Again, you class him as a utility player. If he could fill any position. Midfield wasn't his usual position. He came in, and he was superb. He battled, but his football was good as well. And of course, Arsenal had a very good midfield, so it wasn't an easy task. But yes, the goal scorers get the glory, Tim. But Phil Neville, anyone that was in that ground that day, and I guess watching on the box, Phil Neville came of age in his Old Trafford career.
Yeah, absolutely. He was immense, and I know Fergie has picked that out. Again, if you get a chance to go back and read a little bit about the season after this, Fergie picked that out as one of his performances of the season. So anyway, let's get into the goals here. So this is the 2-0 at home. Again, same week, Arsenal, Liverpool, to be able to win both these games. Terrific.
By Seagull to Solskjaer's head. Scholes, no flag. Varane! Scored by Varane. From Scholes' cross. And was there a hand in there by Ruud van Nistelrooy?
Well, that's the first thing I thought when the ball goes up to him. Did he just lean down, control it with the right arm? But after that, when the decision was...
Van Nistelrooy. Oh, Scholes has picked his way through! Manchester United 2, Arsenal 0. And at Trafford, they really do feel that Manchester United are back.
Yeah, no questions about that. Just admiration. A for Van Nistelrooy's determination at first to win the ball. And then it's all about Scholes. And that is a cameo of what he's all about.
Just a tremendous performance by Involved that day. Just real quick, pull up a couple of the comments here. Reese says, Arsenal back then were extremely difficult games, but did offer excitement. That game, the Liverpool game, and the game against Chelsea at Old Trafford as well were all important results. Yeah, immense. Absolutely spot on with that, Reese. Neville's performance, best I've seen. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, back when commentary was as good as football, for sure. But yeah, that game, I mean, I think if VAR had been around back then, maybe the first goal, there was a hint of handball and a hint of offside, but who's complaining? Just again, an immense day against the team, really the defending champions and the team that you're likely going to be sort of competing with at the end of the season. These really are 6-point games. So to be able to sort of, lay down that gauntlet just before Christmas, I think was a massive result for sure.
It kept us in the hunt for the title, Tim, because although we lost those games after that to Middlesbrough and Blackburn, they weren't 6-pointers. Reese is spot on. For about the first 10 years of the Premier League, the two giants were United and Arsenal. Other teams were around coming and having a go. Liverpool, Newcastle, etc. Villa and Norwich in the early days. But there was no big money at Stamford Bridge. There was no big money at the Etihad. United and Arsenal more or less dominated the Premier League and the English domestic football for the best part of 10 years, up to the time we're coming now to 2003, 2004. It's not to say that the title race were close, but there wasn't the vast sums of money thrown at certain clubs that kind of, I won't say bought their success. No, I will say bought their success.
Yes, indeed. And we'll put up the standings then, Pete, from the end of that. So up to December 26th. So you touched on it. The defeats away to Blackburn and Middlesbrough. I remember being absolutely miserable on Boxing Day after we lost that game, because I was watching the game with a chap from Middlesbrough, who was a Middlesbrough supporter, and so I kind of took a lot of stick that day. But I remember not being happy over the festive period because of those two defeats. But what are you going to do? So we finish off that sort of stretch, like you said, with the two defeats. And then in the table, so you look at played 20 and United moving up to third, still 7 points behind Arsenal. So really, I mean, you're going into the new year or going through that festive period, 7 points behind the defending champions. It's a hell of a lot of points to have to rein in. I mean, I realize it's still early in the season, but you're talking about, or early-ish, midway maybe, you're talking about a tremendous Arsenal side to have to rein in after Christmas. And I think I forget what the stat is, but generally the team that's leading the top of the league at Christmas is generally the team that goes on to win the league. So,
and what was worrying, Tim, if you look at those 5 defeats, it wasn't to very good teams at the time. City, Bolton, Blackburn, Middlesbrough, Leeds, you could say, are fierce rivals, but we'd lost 5 before the turn of the year to teams we shouldn't have done, really. And if you're going to win the league, you can't do that. But roll on 2003, Tim.
And that's it. 2003 rolls around, and we move into phase 3. Move into phase 3 now, which is the largest sort of haul of games that we focused on. So from December 28, 2002, turn of the century, turn of the new year at 2002 to 2003. And this is really in the league where we started to kick on, Pete, and you highlighted that when we were talking. I mean, you said, look at that run from December 28th till the end of the season. This is really when we sort of ratcheted up a gear and really started to turn the screw in the league. So the 4-0 defeat of Liverpool at Old Trafford, 6-2 victory over Newcastle after elimination from the Champions League, which we'll touch on in that tremendous performance by Ronaldo. Wins in 9 of the last 10 league games. So, I mean, you look at that run-in, and we'll look at an individual who has played a massive part in that and what his goals meant in those last 8 games. But, really just a tremendous run, wasn't it, from December 28th onward?
Yes is the short answer, Tim. Now, on December 28th, we played Birmingham City. Okay, so we'd lost to Blackburn away, lost to Middlesbrough, Birmingham City at home. The most important thing about that, apart from winning, Roy Keane came back into the team for his first game since late August.
Yeah.
We're not a one-man team. You can see that by the graphics you put up earlier of all those stars that still hold their place in the game, 20 years on. But Roy Keane took us to another dimension. We covered it in the last episode we did, which was the 1999 second leg in Turin, and he was still doing it in 2002. So I think the Irish, I don't know if it's a gentleman or lady, who said she was sorry that they lost, the Irish team lost Roy Keane. It might have been to United's benefit, because we would have hated to have not had a fit Keane in these latter stages. But Keane comes back and it kicks in. And 18 games, 15 won, 3 draws, no defeats. We have to go to Arsenal in that period, which we can cover. We played Liverpool. Well, you have to play half a season there. So you're playing all the big clubs again. And it's not too different to 95, 96, where Arsenal kind of seem to be running away with it. I think even on the 2nd of March, they were still 8 points ahead.
Yeah.
They were keeping this up, but they couldn't keep the form up all the way. I think United went to the top for the first time around after that Newcastle win, which I think was around the 2nd of April. That was the first time we actually went to the top where we played equal games with Arsenal. So it wasn't a nip and tuck. It was us just sitting on their shoulder and just keep churning and churning away. But if you think of that that number of wins, what is it, 15, 30 points?
Yeah.
48 points out of 51. That's some going.
Amazing. Yeah, March 5th, we're still 5 points ahead, or Arsenal's still 5 points ahead of us on March 1st. Yeah. And then on March 15th, we play. So March 5th, we had a midweek game against Leeds, which we won 2-1.
Yeah.
And then Saturday, March 15th, we pull to within 2 points of Arsenal.
Yeah.
Level on
March
games
made
played.
A big difference, yeah.
So March made a big difference. And then you touched on it. When we go to Arsenal, we're actually top of the league at that point, I believe, on 70 by 3 points. So we're on 71 points.
5 games to go into it, I think.
5 games to go. And during the run-in, going to Arsenal, knowing that a loss there, I mean, the implications that could have had on the title race.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at that game.
They'd love to get an equaliser here, and Ashley Cole. Oh, it's in! It didn't take the direct route. Did it go off Henry?
Well, that's a lovely ball! And here's the chance to go in the lead, and Henry has taken it! And I tell you what, I think the linesman might have got that wrong. He certainly looked from that picture to be in an offside position when the ball was played, and he went on and found the net. And United have got a just cause for complaint. As Solskjaer crosses, it's a great ball in. Ah, what a game this is! Straight away they've hit back with Ryan Giggs. Game of the season, you bet it is.
So just a tremendous game, Pete. just back and forth, goals within just a minute of each other there, and a really, really important result. A really important result for United in terms of the context of the season to not go there and lose. I'll just get to a couple of the comments quick again before I get your take on that game. Reese again. So the inception of the Premier League in 1993, 13 teams have led the league at Christmas and failed to win the title at the seasons. I know I'm surprised by that. I thought it was less, but Reese would know. He's got the knowledge. So Norwich were first to fail. Liverpool have failed 3 times. Oh, I'm happy about the Liverpool thing.
hey, we need to get Reese on as a fact checker.
Yeah, 100%. He'd be a great one to have on. So we'll reach
very
out
good. Yeah, I'm going to have to think twice now about anything I quote. It's good.
but tremendous result at Highbury. We'll look at sort of at the end of looking at the season. We have a couple things that we're going to touch on that just as overall observations from this season. We will get to obviously Ronaldo's performance at the end as well, but I know we kind of skipped past that, but we're going to touch on that at the end. But just when you look at that Arsenal game, in context of the season, most important result of the season in terms of when it happens and where it happens for you, or
yes, no? Yes, because of when it happens. If you looked at just the league games that we had around that time, it was Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, and Arsenal away, and we're holding on to this slim lead at the top. We beat Liverpool 4-0. We win 6-2 at Newcastle, and then we needed not to lose at Arsenal, and we didn't. Some of that got clouded because we'll come to it in a bit. We were playing Real Madrid in the quarters, but just take the league games. Those were 3 difficult ones on the trot. We blew Liverpool away. We blew Newcastle away, and we went to a cauldron at Highbury. Now I didn't go that night, Tim. I was going to nearly all the games, right? From way back, and certainly when Fergie started winning titles. But I got twin girls, and at that point there were 3, and I had to pick and choose my games. So I had to stay at home and watch that on the box. But it was one of those where I thought, oh my God, I just should have gone. I should have gone, But you can't go to them all. But that's just a personal memory then. But yeah, critical, and the bottle United showed to go. I mean, Arsenal were giants, and I think Campbell got sent off, didn't he, for elbowing Solskjaer? I seem to remember. Reese will check it. We really stood up to them that night. That's when a boxer goes into the ring against something like Muhammad Ali and stands his ground and gives as good as he got. And I think that it didn't clinch it for us, but the centre of power moved to Manchester from London with that draw that night. Critical. Yeah,
Keen from the Weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast, echoing what you said there, Pete. Showed fight in that Arsenal game and maintained our momentum. Yeah, certainly. Championship character. I mean, those are the games. If you're going to win a title, those are the games that you can't afford to lose, and that by whatever means necessary, you need to get a result. And to be able to go down 2-1 at Highbury, and like with how close the fans were to the pitch back then. I mean, they were right on top of you. It was an intimidating place to be at. To be able to go right back up the pitch after giving up that goal, and the ball from Solskjaer into Ryan Giggs at the far post, to be able to level that quickly, it really just took the sting right out of what Arsenal did then, didn't it?
Oh, it did. It did. Yes. Yeah. And the way we scored the goals, No, it was a first class performance, and teams that do that during the running win the league.
Yeah, that's it.
Many years in the 80s, I saw United almost fall apart in the last 6 games, and Liverpool comes through and beat, and win 5 out of 6 or whatever. You need Bottle, and United had Bottle in oodles in 2003. In fact, for most of the years that Fergie managed, we had Bottle. And of course, he loved beating Wenger. It was personal.
Yeah, it was absolutely. So Pete, United actually, so we clinched the title that season with it playing. Arsenal dropped points to Leeds. I think it was Leeds that they either lost to or drew to. Maybe Reese can fact check that one for me as well. But
we played on the Saturday, I think.
Yeah.
I think Tim. Van Nistelrooy got a hat trick in a 4-1 win over Charlton. In the penultimate game, Leeds went to Arsenal on the Sunday. Or it may have been the Monday, forgive me, but it was bank holiday again. We had a space of winning titles without playing on May bank holidays. 93, 94, anyway, 2003, still doing it. So we were all half listening to the Leeds Arsenal result, just expecting Arsenal to win it, and it came through. Viduka, I think, scored the winner. But we won it without playing. So you have to drop what you're doing then. We were visiting guests in Stockport, and we had to say, sorry, but we've got to go now, much to my wife's chagrin. And we're heading down to Old Trafford, grabbed a couple of bottles of beer, because we didn't expect Arsenal to lose that one. We thought we'd have to go to Everton in the final game and win it. But we won it without playing. And
you touched on it there, Pete, last game of the season against Everton, and cue the celebrations for United.
They've got their trophy back.
We've got our trophy back. We went from we won our trophy back to we've got our trophy back.
Well, from Christmas that year, I'd say, it may have started earlier. You can't always remember where a chant starts, but that became the chant of the season. Just like in 07, it was keep the trophy glistening for Mourinho. We were back in May to take it away. The one for 03 was we want our trophy back. And it gathered momentum through January to May as United got closer and closer, and that was on the terraces at Old Trafford and every away ground we went to.
Yeah.
So to see the players singing it there and Fergie clapping along.
Yeah.
Big thing here, Tim. So, some great memories. They're just great. Every time you see United pick up a title or any trophy, we should cherish it, because you never know what's going to be the last one that we win. Yep. Not ever, but for a long time. Or the last one you see. I'm not a spring chicken now, Tim. So I cherish every one, but I was cherishing it in those days. But they were wondering whether they would allow United to be presented with the trophy. They had to get special police permission and Premier League permission, because they were celebrating it on Merseyside. So that's not. It's great for us, but there were concerns that Everton fans would wait behind outside. Liverpool were playing far away, I think. And the Liverpool fans would be waiting outside, and there'd be trouble because we were staying behind after, etc., etc. Common sense prevailed, and it let us have the trophy, which was great. Quite a few Everton fans stayed behind and applauded it or just watched it. They just missed out on Europe by losing that game 2-1. Moyes would have taken them into Europe. Do you remember Moyes?
I do, of course. Who doesn't?
He would have got into Europe.
I remember him at Everton. I try to erase it from memory from the patch at United.
That's the best thing to do. But what was great about it, the presentation was right in front of the away fans. So in the past, when I've watched presentations from Old Trafford, because we've usually won it, then they give it on the last game. It's great to see, but you're about 300 yards away from at the back of the stand. They were right in front of us, and it was like celebrating with the players. We couldn't get on the pitch, but they came right to the side of the ground at the Bullen's Road, and it was just a fantastic party for half an hour of singing and dancing and a proper unison of manager, players and fans. And thank God I was lucky enough to get a ticket for that game, and I was there, and great memories, Tim.
Amazing. It's one of my favorite parts of doing this, Pete, is hearing your memories of being there for these massive moments. There's the league table. So how things finished up. United, that again, we touched on it, that run of 18 games without a loss from Boxing Day forward, December 28th forward, and just a tremendous run in the league. Ended up finishing 5 points out of Arsenal. We'll get to some more of the comments here before we sort of get into the final bit of the show. Keane says, glad we don't have to go to Highbury anymore. Moving there was the start of the rot for Arsenal. Yeah. It had that intimate feel, didn't it? It really was such a nice, a ground in terms of the supporters being so close to the pitch and creating that atmosphere. So funny that Arsenal built the Emirates to challenge for top European honors against Barca, Man United, and Barcelona, but they were doing it at Highbury. That's just poetic justice. Yeah, again, terrific ground was Highbury.
And of course, just over those next 10 years, they had to spend the money on the ground, the big money, not all of it, but big money.
Yep.
That did restrict them. It's a difficult decision to make. Tottenham have had to do similar. So,
Absolutely. Recent again, to think between 92 and 2001, we could have won the league 9 times in a row, only to lose by a single point each time. Sir Alex is the greatest of all time. Hard to argue with that, Reese. And Ajmal Cosman, wow, catching the show live. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying the stroll down the Warwick Road with us today. Pete and Sam, do you reckon if Liverpool moves to a bigger stadium, they will be less strong? It seems like a modern day question. It's like you just touched on there, Pete. It kind of ties into what you said about Arsenal with it being a major decision to move to a stadium and to burden yourself with the cost of that and the impact it has on the footballing side of things. I don't know, mate. It depends on how deep the pockets are of the Fenway Sports Group, I suppose.
If it meant weakening them, then I hope they'd move.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I am conservative with a small c. I do like the old football grounds. That's not to say I don't like some of the modern stadiums. I do, but they tend to be a bit characterless and sometimes soulless.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Each ground in the UK was unique. It had its own character, its own good, bad, or ugly. But now it's built. They're built to similar specification. So I hope they stay at Anfield. I do like tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Pete, that sort of ends the recap of the season, if you will, game by game. But I think there's a couple things that we wanted to touch on before we left in terms of individual performances, what happened at the end of the season. I suppose the first one that we'll go back to, and some people touched on it earlier, was a comment from Keane. Ronaldo at Old Trafford that season gives me nightmares. When you talk about, and this is something maybe we'll look at on another show, individual performances by opposition players at Old Trafford, it is one of the greatest performances that I've seen by an individual player, opposition player, and to do it on that stage in the second, quarterfinal, Champions League quarterfinal, second leg at Old Trafford, just a magical night. I mean, it was just such an immense performance. I remember the United faithful clapping him off the pitch because it was just sometimes as an opposition fan, you just have to hold your hands up and recognize greatness. And that was just one of those moments from an opposition player that you just think back to and just think how amazing to be there for you. I don't know if you're at that game. I'm assuming you were, to be there to see that. But for me, even to watch that, just, it's just something that you remember, in this season of brilliance.
You've spot on there, Tim. It was one of the best performances by an individual player, an opposing player at Old Trafford that I've seen, and I've been going since September 1964. There will have been others. I remember West Brom coming and beating us 5-3 at Christmas '78. The difficult thing is if it's a disappointing night for United, either the result or the outcome. So we beat Real Madrid 4-3 in that second leg, but we'd gone out.
Yep.
We'd gone out and we wanted to be kings of Europe. Remember the Bruce Springsteen did?
Yeah.
And sorry, just a point. I do Ronaldo. It's just one thing I want to come back to briefly. I know we're running out of time, but Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo's performance was superb. It hit us. We were 3-1 down for the first leg. Don't forget they had Zidane and they had Figo and Galacticos. Even somebody called McManaman, I think. But he killed the game. Few minutes in, and it was 4-1. So anyway, he came back. But all through that game, he just kept playing. No matter how much United were pushing, it was a very good United side. He came back and scored. Deserved every bit of the standing ovation he got. And he didn't milk it, and it was genuine. And credit to United fans that did it. We wanted to get to that European final, as we do every year. But here's the thing. And I went to Real Madrid away. I had to leave the kids, but they were in good care. And I went to Real Madrid at home. I saw both those games. They were both fantastic games in many ways. I had to admire Madrid. The final, Tim, that year was at Old Trafford. Yeah. So we wanted
that's
to
right.
We wanted to go to Glasgow the season before. Hello, we're going to Glasgow was the song. We were going to play the final at Old Trafford. Everybody wants to do that. Barcelona wanted to do that in '99 and imploded after that because they didn't. But the sad thing is, I think in the end, we lost to Real in the quarters. Madrid, as good as they were, lost to either AC Milan or Juve in the semis because the final at Old Trafford was a very sterile AC Milan and Juventus final, I think. Reese will check it. Not a great game. But to have played a Champions League final at Old Trafford, can you imagine that? So it was a crushing defeat to go out to Madrid. It really, really was. And it was really the end of United being able to rule Europe. We'd have to come back again with a new team. And it's what Fergie tried to build after 2003. But it was the last chance, really, to cash in on the treble-winning team and the legacy of that, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Pete, we have to touch on the season. Let's clear the comment off the screen here. Bear with me for a second here, folks. But we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the season that this man had. Golden Boot winner, Premier League Player of the Season. He had the most goals in Europe in the Champions League. 3 hat-tricks that season. Premier League record for goals in all competitions. I think it was equaled by Mo Salah on the same amount of games in 2018. Scored in each of the last 8 games. So in the run-in, scored in 8 of the last 8 games. 25 goals in the Premier League. 14 goals in the Champions League. 4 goals in the FA Cup. A goal in the League Cup. 44 goals and 10 penalties that season. And Pete, for me, I don't know how. We'll see what the masses feel like, but the goal of the season.
Van Nistelrooy did well, surrounded by white shirts and still going. What a run by Ruud van Nistelrooy! What a goal this could be! They could close the betting on goal of the month for March, maybe even the season. Ruud van Nistelrooy with a very, very special effort.
Well, Jean Tigard is absolutely furious. He feels that there was perhaps a foul on Sylvain Legwinski. But that's not a detractor from one of the finest goals that we've seen this season. He really has been in the mood today. And when he gets in positions like this, you don't back against him. You really don't. And he almost takes the control and the shot in one movement. And Taylor can do nothing about it, as well as the Fulham keeper has played. An exceptional finish to an exceptional...
Just unbelievable goal, Pete, for me. What are your takeaways from Ruud's performance that season and sort of what we saw? We talked about Ronaldo in terms of one of the greatest opposition performances at Old Trafford. In terms of, you look at the great players and the record-breaking goal scorers in terms of Dennis Law's 46 goals in 42 league games. Ronaldo's 42 goals. That clearly goes down as one of the greatest seasons ever from a United player, certainly.
Oh, definitely. Ruud van Nistelrooy was quite simply a great goal scorer. Not necessarily a scorer of great goals. That was one. It was all within the penalty area or 6-yard box. That one was quite rare, but it just shows his skill there, the pace, the control, the way he has to kind of get his foot at a certain angle to get it round the goalkeeper, all within nanoseconds.
Yeah.
I mean, he's rated at Old Trafford amongst the fans as one of the best. Fans still love him. He was there 2001 to 2006, and he came back from that bad knee injury that delayed his signing from 2000 to 2001. I don't know if you remember.
He
did his knee in. But,
PSV Eindhoven, he hurt his knee.
He was excellent. 01 to 03, absolutely brilliant. He was still a great player for those next 3 years, from 03 to 06. But you know what he didn't have for those 3 years, Tim? At the end of that season, Beckham left for Madrid.
Yeah.
David Beckham left after picking up that trophy. Fergie sold him, basically. Beckham's crosses and Ruud van Nistelrooy getting them on the end, a few teams could live with. And it was one of the most joyous partnerships I've seen in terms of goal scoring at Old Trafford in my time. And for those 2 years, it was something very, very special. And he'll go down in the annals. He didn't win a lot at Old Trafford in his 5 years there, but he certainly made a contribution.
Certainly. 79 goals over those two. 2001, 2002 to 2002, 2003, 79 goals. What a return and what a goal rate. Just unbelievable. In 2 seasons. Just absolutely incredible. But before you touched on the Beckham thing, but we're going to get to that in just a second. Let's bring up a couple more comments quickly here before we go. Reese says, please don't bring up the League Cup final. Yeah, we kind of glossed over that one. We did make it to the League Cup final. We lost to the team that plays in red from Merseyside. We won't say who it was, but obviously disappointing. Good to make a cup final, but disappointing to lose it.
And we also went out of the FA Cup to Arsenal, but let's gloss over that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's when David Beckham got the boots kicked on his head, allegedly. Yeah.
Real Madrid, Reese again touching on some of the tremendous players at Real Madrid, 19-year-old Casillas. And get to one more here before we get to the last graphic. Ajmal says, thanks, guys. I've learned a lot of history about the club listening to this podcast. Check out some of our other shows, Ajmal, and we're here every month. So, we love talking about the United culture and history. So if you enjoy that as well, make sure you tune in. It's not every day that you get the listening to Pete, who's got this tremendous knowledge and memories. Right. So you touched on it. There, Pete. End of the season. And, one of the class of 92 departs. And I think when Beckham left for me, I mean, you got the sense the transition was happening, but, Beckham left. I think Nicky Butt left the next season. I think Phil Neville left that same season. I think the 2003, 2004 season at the end, I think they left. I'd have to look it up. But when Beckham left, for me, that really, I got the sense that this team was moving forward in another direction because, with his profile, and he was really, maybe that was part of why Fergie decided that it was time. You heard reports of him not being happy with the sort of Hollywood profile that Bex was taking on, and his decision to sort of want to create that brand and lifestyle or whatever that he was creating. I mean, it's certainly something he's entitled to do, but Fergie, reports indicated that Fergie wasn't too happy with that. And then of course you touched on it, the bust up after the full-time whistle in the game against Arsenal in the 5th round of the FA Cup, where he kicks the boot, and the famous picture of Bex driving away from Old Trafford or from the training ground with the stitches and with that sort of not a very happy look on his face. You heard these things rumbling sort of all season, and then when Solskjaer, we touched on it when Beckham came back from injury, he didn't come right back into the side, did he, when Solskjaer had moved out to the right to sort of replace him while Bex was injured. So all these things, it just sort of was crescendoing to this transfer of Beckham towards the end of the season. But 395 appearances, 85 goals, 15 trophies, inclusive of the Youth FA Cup, but 6 Premier League titles, Champions League, 2 FA Cups, just an immense return for a terrific player. And I was disappointed to see him go on a personal level, because I think at that time, he was the height of coolness, I think, for that United team for me. I was sort of early 20s at uni. He had the flowing hair. Everybody knew who David Beckham was in the world. And for me, I mean, outside of his ability to cross the football and, his work rate and all those tremendous things on the football pitch that we can point at, it symbolized for me sort of the end of an era for a United team that I sort of talked about at the start of the show, that, going over to United and being there in the treble season. And I loved United before that, but it was this group of players that really drew me in. York, Cole, Bex, and as much as I loved the club before that, those were the players that my sort of pandemonium identified with. And so to see Bex leave was disappointing for me.
Yeah, you'd be at the point now where I was when Best Law and Charlton finished, when I was about 20. And right. it was like, well, which gods are holding up the firmament now? Yeah. So I understand that emotion. Very, very simply, David Beckham was a tremendous player for Manchester United and England. Yeah. I love Beckham as a player. I love Beckham as a man, as a person. I think he's got real integrity. I like just the way he lives his life. Yeah. By 2003, it had become brand Beckham. Yeah. And it's up to individuals to decide what they want to do in their personal life. But Fergie has said a few times since, because I don't indulge in the gossip. I go on Twitter, but I try and deal in fact. But eventually, gossip fades away, and true stories come out with autobiographies, don't they, and biographies.
Right.
Fergie said that when Scholes went in for the renewal of contracts and Giggs went in for the renewal of contract and the Nevilles, it was done and dusted in a few minutes. Sit down, where do I stand? Right. David Beckham, it took 6 meetings, and it said it had become a circus of the people who brought in with him, whatever, and the media around it. So his situation had become probably too big for United. I think it probably was time to move on, as you say. If you look at 03 to 06, Fergie brought in the other Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, and so on. So only the manager knows what goes on inside the club and when it's right to move players on. But here's another thing, Tim. I've been watching United for 60 years now, nearly, 50 odd. It rarely ends well for your heroes. It very rarely do they walk off into the sunset happy, living happy ever after. Schmeichel kind of did. Roy Keane ended in disharmony. Law was transferred behind his back with Tommy Dock. Georgie Best was told, go on, So, unfortunately, and it's not just at United, it just doesn't end well for heroes. So, I don't know what you can do about that. But except, as time goes on, you remember the good rather than the bad. So, Beckham had a good career after he left Old Trafford. We thank him. We'll always be grateful for what he did at Old Trafford. I love watching him. But we have to move on. So, but he still loves United. Whenever United played, AC Milan he went to, he applauded the United fans in the San Siro that day in 2010. He applauded him when he came to Old Trafford. And his love of United was there before he played for them and after he played for them. And we'll always respect that.
Yeah, we'll finish up here with a couple of quick comments and we will bid adieu. True story. After leaving Manchester United, David Beckham did not watch United for 2 years due to the difficulty of leaving the club. He never wanted to leave. He loved the club, no doubt about it. And he still loves the club. Beckham still remains my favorite player. I hate it when he left. However, the club moves on. Keane, one of my heroes, Ole, rode off into the sunset, winning the league. Absolutely. Pete, we've been going at this now for an hour and 20 minutes. I think we've pretty much covered everything. It's been fun, real fun. Parting words on the 02-03 season.
A great season. We got our trophy back. United at the top of the English game again, dominating the English game. 4-0 against Liverpool, who were in the top 6. 6-2 at Newcastle.
So
we were dominating England. We couldn't dominate Europe. Fergie had to come back with another team later to dominate Europe again. But 02-03 was a marvellous season. We played, and we've probably not said it as many words, we played some excellent football throughout. Yes. You were on the edge of your seat, home or away. That is the Busby way. That is the Manchester United way. And hopefully Ollie can deliver a slice of that over the next few years. But I've enjoyed it. Thanks for the comments from the guests, etc., Tim.
Yes,
really loved it.
Yes, thank you everybody who tuned in. We're here once a month, guys. So if you like what you see, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, or follow us on Twitter at Warwick Road Walk. Subscribe on YouTube, and if you hit the notification bell, then we tweet out when our shows are going to be. But you'll get notified when we go live. We've got some really good stuff coming up over the next few months, Pete, in terms of fan culture and supporting United through the years, and some other things that you and I have been talking about. So we're really excited to do this. I have fun researching it. Pete has fun researching it. We're sort of going back and forth on WhatsApp with all kinds of facts that we've remembered over the course of our research. So we really enjoy it, and we hope you guys did too. And we will see you soon. Take care.
Take care, everyone.